People seeking copies of police and jail videos in Ohio may have to pay up to $75 for each hour if Governor Mike DeWine signs a measure approved by the state legislature this week. The fee was included in an amendment to the state's sunshine laws that was quietly introduced and passed after midnight Thursday by the GOP-controlled legislature. Now, the maximum fee if DeWine signs this bill will be capped at $750. And while that seems relatively manageable, it's important to look at the costs that media outlets could face in aggregate. So far this year, Ohio police have killed 44 people. And if a media outlet wanted body cam footage of each incident, they were charged the maximum amount of $750. That's $33,000 for one media outlet to access every single instance. But that's not including police brutality where someone isn't killed or other videos of police misconduct. Now, Ohio's Attorney General Dave Yost comments in support of the bill. He revealed in part what their motive was: suppressing the free flow of public information. Yost said that social media influencers and professional YouTube creators have bogged down police departments with requests for these videos, effectively making the taxpayers subsidize their little garden businesses. The ACLU chapter of Ohio is speaking out on this bill and urging Governor DeWine to veto it, but it's unclear where he'll fall. Cenk, where do you think he'll go on this? It seems that he'll probably support it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Republican. The Republicans passed it in the legislature, so he'll probably support it. It might seem like a tiny thing to you guys. Hey, you know, $75 an hour, max $750. Not only is the math, of course, that Jordan did right, but just think about it this way, guys. What happened in media? It got democratized a little bit, right? Before it was just mainstream media. You have local television and radio, and the national guys aren't going to care about a local story 9 out of 10 times. But now it got democratized so that people can just make YouTube videos. And what happened since then? Well, you've seen all the smartphone videos and the body cam videos that cause all the outrage about police shooting too early, police abusing the citizens, et cetera, right? So, well, that became uncomfortable for the cops. So now when you do this, you do two things. Number one, a lot less people are gonna get their hands on videos that might be damaging to the police department and the people in power, right? But the second thing that it does, you might miss. It goes back to monopolizing the media in the hands of the people who are more friendly to the people in power, right? Because you can't control Random Bob and Random Sally in Ohio, but if you've got 3 or 4 local television news stations, I grew up on those stations. You know what they tell you 24/7? The cops are the greatest thing on earth. And they're all friends with the cops. They have the cops on as experts on their newscasts all the time. Growing up, I never once saw a negative story about police from local news because they were all giant companies that they needed access to the cops for their reporting theoretically, and they cozied up with power. So they are much, much easier to control. And they can afford $34,000 or $44,000 or even $750 that a normal guy can't afford. So you bring the media back into the bigger forces that are easier to control, so you have less trouble from the citizenry. So that's why this bill might seem small, but it's actually a huge problem as these forces now realize, oh, if we make things expensive, it'll force people back into mainstream media, which we can control better.
Well, yeah, and right on time too, given how, mainstream media is really suffering, not just because people have the fatigue from after the election, but also it's just not really very reliable coverage. But, this is just an arbitrary attempt to make it more difficult for the public to hold authority accountable. This type of stuff is not an issue in wealthier neighborhoods because that's not, the police are there to protect the wealthier neighborhoods. The police are there to protect the capitalist overlords. And especially given how much of this activity is disproportionate in Black and brown neighborhoods, and you're even less likely to be able to have that type of money to get the police footage. But also I want to put out, even though we have more access to body cam footage these days, it hasn't really stopped the police violence that happens, that not really much has come from that. So, I think that we're, entering a time. Elon Musk just spent $250+ million to be the shadow president. the new head of the education spent $20 million to be the head of education. That's just the time we in now. So all of this stuff's about to get worse. They already reversed Roe v. Wade. Any area they have to increase their authority, they're going to take it. Project 2025. All of a sudden, Trump knows what it is. He didn't before. So, I think that we're just going to see a lot more of this because the minority's in control.
Yeah. This ultimately is about demanding respect and deference to the police, trusting their narratives. So again, I really want to underscore, this isn't just about police killings. I pulled those numbers just to show if you were to pull every single video and they charged you the maximum amount, what it would look like for one media outlet. But there are many independent publishers or small outlets or even just creators on YouTube who have a passion for this topic, observing, recording the police, aggregating footage because it's in the public interest. That's your tax dollars at work. Things like traffic stops where somebody abuses their power. I think Indisputable does a tremendous job chronicling those things. But those types of videos charging small-time publishers $750 each, potentially, ultimately will just shut off the flow of information because, like Cenk is saying, legacy outlets, mainstream outlets, local news affiliates, they don't really care unless there's already interest shown because they're not going to jeopardize their symbiotic relationship with local police. They need them for interviews, for access when they're covering like hard crime stories, which is most of what local news is. So it falls to independent publishers or newspapers who have a digital enterprise and they're already struggling. So we're dealing with an already beleaguered media ecosystem. As Jackson points out, cable news, if they even would cover it, are struggling, but most likely don't have an interest in these types of stories. So it's really just to crush this budding ecosystem of people on the internet who are doing this type of stuff because local news is dying and the local outlets won't do that type of coverage.
All right, last two quick things for me. As we talk and have tons of debates about crime within the left, right, and we discuss crime in 100 different ways. Jackson's totally right. We never actually did police reform. Lost in all of that is we didn't reform the police 1 inch. That's the main thing we were complaining about. That's the main thing we were showing you guys, and none of that happened. So it's super frustrating. Now, but I'll end on an embarrassing story. So when I was a kid, I grew up in a suburb in New Jersey, and I went to pretty sheltered life. All I get is like local news and national news, etc. And I go to college, and I got into a debate with a friend of mine. And a friend of his had evidence planted on him by cops. I don't remember where it was. And I didn't believe it. I'm like, they're making it up. They obviously had the drugs and they're pretending that they didn't, right? Because why would cops plant evidence on someone? I literally had never heard of any such thing. That's why I thought it was like comically wrong. It's so irrational. Why would they ever do that? It had never crossed my radar. Why? Because of mainstream media. They had never once shown a cop in any bad light ever. All I had ever seen, especially on local news, is, well, the local police department's chief is here. Well, tell us what's going on, Bob. And so like you never saw the abuse, you never saw anything. Why did we see it? Because of all the videos of body cams, etc. So now they're trying to put that genie back in a bottle so a young knucklehead like me gets all the wrong information, right? So don't let them do that, Ohio. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.